Hello everyone. I thought we'd do a little pelvic floor anatomy lesson today. So here is my trusty pelvis, and we'll just dive right in. So something really important to know about the pelvic floor is there's actually several layers to the pelvic muscles. So first we're going to start with the superficial layer. So right here you can see all of this red is actually muscle, and right here as well, and right here. This is considered the superficial layer of your pelvic floor. So your pelvic floor has a lot of functions, but one of the functions of the superficial layer is to help with keeping our continence, both at the urethra and at the anus. It's also responsible and plays a role in our sexual health. So the superficial layer of pelvic floor muscles are really important. The other thing to note here is this is called the perineal body. So a lot of women think that this tissue between the bottom of the vagina and the anus is just skin, but it's actually what I would consider one of the most important structures in the pelvic floor. And here's why. I call it the load-bearing wall of the pelvic floor because so many of the pelvic muscles attach into this, including your external anal sphincter and some of the fascia and connections that come from the deep layer of the pelvic floor. Why is that important? Well, if we've gone through the journey of labor and delivery, this can often get disrupted. So if we've had even a grade 2 tear, we start getting into that perineal body. A grade 3 tear is on the outside of the anal sphincter, and then a grade 4 tear would be all the way through. And so when we disrupt that load-bearing wall, we have sometimes a little bit of difficulty regaining the structure and the stability of the pelvic floor. So we are going to talk a lot about scar tissue and making sure that we're optimizing this if we've had an episiotomy or maybe a natural perineal tear during labor. So that's the superficial layer. Here's something to point out too, is that it attaches into the pubic bone here. It attaches into tailbone, and then obviously all the way over to your two sit bones or your butt bones. So now we'll talk about the deep layer just a little bit. So you can see there's a lot going on in there. This muscle here is actually a hip muscle. This is called obturator internus, and it's responsible for rotating your hip, but it's very fascially connected to your pelvic floor. So this is how and why we care about the pelvic floor when we're working with clients who have hip pain. And then there's several muscles that make up the pelvic floor on each side. So that is right where your pelvic organ sits. So this would be where rectum comes up, and then right here would be vagina, and then urethra and bladder sit right here. So you can see this U-shaped hole. This is called the urogenital hiatus, and it's literally a gap or a hole in your pelvic floor, and that is right where your your vagina and uterus sit, as well as your bladder. And so really interesting, after labor and delivery, 6 to 8 weeks after labor and delivery, the vagina actually returns to its pre-pregnancy and delivery size, but the urogenital hiatus does not. And so oftentimes this hiatus is a little bit larger once you are postpartum, and obviously having more of a gap there is not ideal for supporting the bladder and the uterus. So that's just a quick little anatomy lesson. I think that there's so much that our pelvic floor does for us. It obviously, you can see here, attaches into the base of your sacrum and your tailbone. So it's a stabilizer of your spine and your hip. It stabilizes right here, this pubic bone. It aids in respiration. We talked a little bit about its importance for maintaining sexual health. It helps us breathe well. I don't know if I actually just said that. So it has such a significant role in our body. The other thing to note is that the forces from when we use our arms and our torso pass through our pelvis and our pelvic floor. And the same thing is true when we use our legs. The forces pass through our pelvic floor. So there's a lot of things that the pelvic floor does for us on a day-to-day basis that we don't even really think about or maybe even appreciate because it just does it. So sometimes the pelvic floor just needs a little bit of a support and attention, a little extra love to make sure that it's doing all the things we want it to do for us. So hope you found that anatomy lesson helpful. Let me know what questions you have about anatomy in the comments below. Thanks.